Hare Krishna. Welcome back to our Bhakti Yoga Journey series. So we are continuing with our the whole flow of texts from the first canto of the Bhagavad Puran. Last time we had a very exciting discussion on, almost an extension of the war, the Battle of Kurukshetra, and we stopped at the point where how finally Arjuna was able to decode this kind, almost like a puzzle that Krishna gave him, and how he showed that kind of a devotional maturity that he had. And if you recall that incident where we discussed how Ashwadhama, in that moment of despair, he released this very powerful Brahmastra, and in that class we discussed how it seemed like Arjuna, using his Brahmastra, was able to control Ashwadhama's Brahmastra. But what Mahabharata reveals next is going to shock all of you. Arjuna did not manage to completely subdue that Brahmastra. In fact, there are two versions of this story here. One version says that because Ashwadhama lacked the ability to withdraw the Brahmastra, he redirected it. Another version says that Ashwadhama actually released two Brahmastras at that point. One was directed towards the Pandavas, which we saw what happened last time. But the second one was directed towards the future heir of the entire Kuru dynasty, who was growing in the womb. If you recall, Ashwadhama, he already killed the 5 sons of Draupadi. So there was nobody else who was the ruler apparent after the Pandavas. But the entire hope of the Kuru dynasty was pinned on one innocent embryo inside the womb of Mother Uttara, who happens to be the daughter-in-law of Arjuna himself, Arjuna's son Abhimanyu, who was very brutally killed during the war. His wife, Uttara, was bearing his child, and eventually he is Parikshit, the main protagonist of the entire Bhagavad Puran, right? So when this whole episode happened, and as the Pandavas were mourning the death of all the soldiers that were killed, and as they were offering the oblations to the departed souls, suddenly out of nowhere, Mother Uttara, she comes rushing towards Krishna. Very interesting. If you recall, so far in the book, we are now somewhere in the 8th chapter, and in the previous chapter, 7th chapter, our first introduction to Krishna in the Bhagavad Puran was in the last chapter. Because if you think about it, first chapter says of Naimisharanya, then some question answers was going on, right? Then Narada and Vyasa, they came into the scene, right? So Krishna, the personality, was introduced only in the previous chapter, and more clearly in this chapter actually, right? Can you think, just imagine watching some Bollywood movie, or even better if you're watching some South Indian movie, right? And the hero is going to make his entry, right? How would the scene be, right? Among some 100 people in the crowd, they'll just show the hero, and the whole camera moves towards the sidekick, and the sidekick is releasing the astras and controlling the whole scene and resolving the whole issue, and he gets the glory at the end of it. Will that be the opening scene, right? Usually, when the hero makes his entry, right, it's so dramatic, starting perhaps from the way their boots, they're walking on the floor, and the camera, it rises all the way up, through his fancy trousers, to his some extraordinary belt, to whatever gear he's wearing on his body, and then finally the face comes, right? So this is how dramatic the entry of any hero, and some very strong background music at that point. And no such drama about Krishna's entry in Bhagavatam. One may think so, but there cannot be any better entry for Krishna in Bhagavatam than what we just saw and what we are going to see now. Because carefully, if you see, what is Krishna doing? Playing the role of Arjuna's charioteer, playing the role of a menial servant. Because understand, a charioteer is not a very, very extraordinary position. In fact, a charioteer, try to understand, back then, in the middle of the war, how would you communicate to your charioteer? It's not that you would say, okay, now turn left or turn right, because there's so much of chaos going on in the battlefield. Your voice cannot even reach your charioteer. So the way the warriors would communicate to their charioteer is by kicking them on their back. If they kick on the left side, turn left. If they kick on the right side, turn right. If they kick in the middle, go straight. And according to the speed, the intensity of the kick changes. Can you imagine? This is the role of a charioteer. This is the role the Supreme Personality of Godhead decided to take. Why? That for ordinary people, being a charioteer may be seen as something of reduced fame, right? In fact, in the Mahabharata itself, when Shalya was told to become the charioteer of Karna, because Karna needed, at one point, Karna was confronting Arjuna. And Karna said, I can defeat Arjuna, but I need a charioteer who's capable like Krishna. So Duryodhana immediately offers, Shalya, can you become his charioteer? He says, no. How can you ask me to become a charioteer? Right? I have greater prestige. I'm a bigger king than Karna. How can I decide to sit at his feet and get kicked by him? And somehow Duryodhana coaxes him, somehow flatters him, and he falls for the flattery, and he finally agrees. But that's the difference. During the war, when things are peaceful, we are willing to somehow mask our ego and do things. But when things become little confrontational, right? When we are going through difficult times, testing times, that's when how much we have the ability to control our ego comes out. And at that moment, during the testing time, Shalya quit his warrior Karna and just left. He said, I'm not going to help you now. Please, you take care of your own. Right? On the contrary, in the Mahabharata, it is described that when the entire war was over, Krishna was still sitting on the chariot and tells Arjuna, Arjuna, you please get off the chariot. I will get down next, which actually is a breach of etiquette from the warrior code, because the driver has to come down and open the door and greet the passenger, the boss. So the charioteer has to get down and greet the warrior. So Arjuna was, a little baffled. Why is Krishna breaching the etiquette here? But anyway, war is over, and he never took it so personally. So Arjuna gets down and he says, stand at little distance. Don't stand too close, chariot. Please go far away. So Arjuna, still puzzled, stands far away. And Krishna jumps off the chariot. And as soon as Krishna jumps off the chariot, the entire chariot bursts into flames. And Arjuna is puzzled. Krishna, what happened? He said, during the war, so many great warriors, they released extraordinarily powerful shastras, mystical weapons. I was absorbing the power of all of that and holding this chariot together. The moment I get off the chariot, right, the whole thing would be destroyed. Therefore, I asked you to get down first, right? And this is a very powerful and very significant pastime, because we like Arjuna, are traveling in the chariot of life. And many times we forget that actually Krishna is the one who is the real protector. And many times we think we may achieve some extraordinary glory in our life, but it's not our glory, it's not our credit, but it is Krishna's credit. Right? Because the moment once Krishna jumps off the chariot, our real power will be for public display. Right? Because the same Arjuna, after the war, after Krishna leaves this world, he gets defeated by simple, forest dwellers. They defeat Arjuna, and Arjuna is wondering. We will discuss this pastime also a little later in the book, right? So it shows that how it is the Supreme Lord. He is the one who bestows empowerment and can also withdraw empowerment. It's not our glory, right? So this whole scene where repeatedly Krishna is shown not as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here I am, the Rajnikant entering into the scene, right? No, he's shown as some insignificant character artist, if you know that expression, in movies and theater, right? Not the lead protagonist, but some side character. He's shown like that. And that mystery of Krishna is going to be unraveled now in this chapter. That's why this chapter is a very, very significant chapter in the context of the book. Because so far, it looks like Arjuna is the hero. Yudhishthir is the hero, Dharmaraj. Or Bhima is the hero, or Draupadi. Her character, she is an extraordinary lady. She may seem like the hero. But when the real hero steps in, everybody else fades away in the background, right? So when the spotlight in a theater, on the stage, when the spotlight is put, why the spotlight is there? To highlight where our attention needs to go. And in this chapter, there's going to be a very, very special spotlight that is going to highlight Krishna. What is that spotlight? This spotlight is called prayers. Throughout the Bhagavatam, you'll see one thing consistently. There are different kinds of prayers which are not just a personal expression of the devotional sentiment of the personality who's offering the prayers, but also it is a very condensed, embodied form of the philosophical essence of the Vedas and the Upanishads and the entire Vedic thought. So that is how powerful the prayers of Bhagavatam are. Right? In fact, many times, especially when we are new to reading scriptures, especially like Bhagavad Puran, we like to see the storyline. Okay, what happens next? And in the process, those boring prayers, let me jump. Right? It is just as foolish as a person who's going into a diamond mine, collecting all the dirt and throwing the diamond away. Because the real essence of Bhagavatam is in the prayers of all these personalities, right? And one of the first prayers that's going to come in the Bhagavad Puran, right, is this prayer by Uttara. So I'm going to project it on the screen. Very, very simple, just 2 verses, but captures the whole essence of the prayer, right? Here is Mother Uttara saying, Uttara Uvacha, Pahi Pahi Mahayogin Deva Deva Jagatpate, Na Anyam Tvad Abhayam Pashye, Yatra Mrityu Parasparam. Pahi Pahi, oh, protect me, save me. That's the mood with which Uttara is running towards Krishna because she's sensing some danger for the child in her womb, the embryo in her womb. Right? This is the mother's, sixth sense. Not everybody could see the Brahmastra, but as a mother, she could immediately sense that some danger is going to come to my child. Right? Because Ashwadhama, in a very sly way, he releases this Brahmastra directed towards And that's how powerful Prabhupada writes in On the Purports that the Brahmastras are not like, they're as powerful as the modern day nuclear weapons, but not as gross. Because modern day nuclear weapon, you drop the weapon, you cannot do a targeted strike. It's like complete mass destruction, right? Like the antibiotics we take, they destroy all, the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. Everything is clean, destroyed inside our gut, right? So the nuclear bombs of the modern age are like that. But the Brahmastras are very, very highly condensed, potent forms of the energy of the cosmos, and they can be very precisely directed. See how powerful this Brahmastra is. It will not affect Uttara, but it will affect just the child within the womb of Uttara. That is how precision that one can achieve through this Brahmastra. So as Uttara is now rushing towards Krishna for this protection, right? Look how she prays. And this is the whole mood and art of praying. In fact, today's, if you've seen the title of today's class, right? We use these three words, glory, gratitude, and grace. Because one may think, oh, prayers means just some spontaneous outpour of some emotion, right? This is how we are taught. But no, even within that spontaneity, there is a beautiful structure, right? And many times, I'm asked this question, isn't bhakti about spontaneity, right? Why so many rules and regulations? Why should we follow all this discipline? Isn't bhakti just a very natural outpour of the heart, right? But we need to understand the structure and the rules, they enhance the beauty of spontaneity, right? The example given is like when you're playing a game of tennis. What does tennis involve? Hitting a ball with a racket onto the other side of the court without hitting the net, right? Now, if that's all the game is, then at one point it will become boring. Because along with that, you have to make sure that the ball doesn't cross the boundary of the court. So is that boundary limiting your hitting or enhancing the style of hitting, right? If just hitting the ball on the other side is the goal of tennis, right, then Roger Federer wouldn't be famous. Because he has the ability to hit extraordinary shots while the ball still be limiting, within the boundary. Even I can hit the ball, but I don't know where the ball will go. That's the difference between me and Roger Federer, right? Because when I spontaneously hit the ball will land in the neighbor's house, not in the court, right? So the ability to show extraordinary skill within that framework enhances the quality of that game of tennis. Likewise, the spontaneity of bhakti, right, it is not limited by the structure, but rather the bhakti rasa is enhanced by that structure, right? And that structure you will see so beautifully. What is Mother Uttara doing here? First thing she's saying is, Pahi Pahi Mahayogin. She's glorifying Krishna. Krishna, you are Mahayogi. And why specifically Maha? And first of all, the context. Who else is there in the assembly? The hero of Mahabharata, Arjuna, is standing there. The most powerful Bhima is standing there. Dharma personified Yudhishthira is standing there, right? The greatest Pativrata, the greatest chastest lady ever, or one of the most chaste lady, Draupadi, is standing there. And yet, Uttara goes straight to Krishna, right? What does that indicate? Because her psychology is coming out in this prayer. Oh Krishna, I know I have an extraordinary father-in-law. And I know my brothers of my father-in-law are even extraordinary, right? I know I have an extraordinary mother-in-law, because usually as a gentle-hearted woman, she likes to express, when in misery, she likes to go to another woman. And who better to take shelter of than the great Draupadi herself? But I am coming to you because I know you are Mahayogin. In this situation, none of the strengths of my family members is going to save me. Ultimately, I know, Krishna, only your power, because you are the Mahayogi, only your extraordinary power is going to save me, not my family. Therefore, immediately she is rushing straight to Krishna and also glorifying him as Deva Deva Jagatpate. Right? You are the Lord of the whole, you are the master of all the masters of this universe. You are the Deva of all the Deva. You are worshipable by all the worshipped entities. Right? And then he says, Na Anyam, I know nobody else can protect me in this situation except you. Right? And this is the most important introduction to Krishna. Because if you see, in the previous chapter, this is also very significant. Here in this chapter, we are able to see Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But before Krishna reveals himself as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is going to reveal himself first as Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Puzzlehead. Because in the previous chapter, Krishna created a puzzle to Arjuna. When you go past the puzzle, then the personality is revealed. Because Krishna is not going to reveal himself easily. As a reader of Bhagavatam, in the previous chapter, it was a test for us to see who was the hero of that previous episode. Is it Bhima? Is it Draupadi? Is it Yudhishthir, who maintained his equanimity in that situation? Or is it Arjuna, who very expertly resolved the whole conflict? No, the real hero of the previous chapter is Krishna. If you have not decoded that puzzle, then you cannot get the privy access into the devotional heart of Bhagavatam. And in this prayer, that devotional heart is being brought out, because in case you missed the previous chapter, now here it is very, very explicit. Who is Krishna? Not just a charioteer, not just somebody who just likes to put his devotees into misery. Right? In fact, Krishna is the only worthy person who can put somebody into misery, because he has a capacity to remove that misery. Sometimes people like to emulate when they read these pastimes, when they read pastimes of great acharyas, and the way they test others, they think, oh, I am now senior, I should test my juniors. Right? Or sometimes we use this logic, oh, let me go and test some people around me. Right? You are qualified to test others only when you are also qualified to protect them. Otherwise, your test is a blatant display of your audacity. Right? So, Krishna here is playing that role. Here I am, the protector, and gives that revelation to Mother Uttara, and therefore she straight away rushes to him. And in this verse, the glory of Krishna is being described, right? And the very next verse, he says that how, oh my Lord, you are all powerful. And now she is requesting for the Lord's grace. This fiery iron arrow, this Brahmastra, which is coming towards me, let it burn me if you so desire. But please don't let it burn and abort my embryo. Kindly do this as a favor for me. Right? So this is that appeal. Many times there are different astras coming towards us in our life. Right? And we approach Krishna as a problem solver. Right? As a troubleshooter. Yes, Krishna loves to protect his devotees. Please don't misunderstand that. When we go through difficulties, who are the best person to take shelter of? But that mood of, the devotional mood of taking shelter is highlighted here. Krishna, you are not just any other troubleshooter. You are my exclusive shelter. right? Just think, and this is very natural when you think about it, right? Sometimes if you are a parent, if your child comes to you and asks for something, with the understanding that, you are the only person who can get me this, right? Then your heart melts. You will be willing to do anything for your child. On the contrary, you know, yes, your child comes and says, okay, are you going to get this for me? If not, I'll go and ask mom, or I'll ask my uncle, or I'll go ask grandpa, or worse, I'll go ask some random stranger to get me this. Are you going to get it? Right? You see the mood, right? Both are approaching the parent, but one with the mood of exclusive shelter, other as, you are one of my many options, right? So what are the one of the many options that we keep in our life? Your physical strength, your power of austerity, your mental capacities, your intellectual expertise, right? I have studied so much of Shastra. I have solved so many other problems in life. I'll also solve this. But let me, just in case as backup, let me pray to Krishna also, right? So the mood of prayer, a prayer is a prayer only when there is exclusive shelter towards the object of your prayer, towards Krishna, right? Otherwise, the prayer is not a prayer. It is just some mental rambling going on, right? We also go and stand before the Lord and we pray sometimes, but deep down, that prayer is, it is not coming from that space of exclusive dependence, but rather, in case it doesn't happen, then I need a plan B also. What is the plan B? My ego. Let me depend on my ego, my abilities, right? My connections, right? So this is the mood of, if you really want to imbibe the whole mood of bhakti as Bhagavatam talks about, right? That mood of exclusive surrender and shelter is what that is to be imbibed. So with that mood, Uttara, she is begging Krishna that even if I die, even let this astra burn me. Krishna, I don't want to ask some extraordinary favors, right? But if you so desire, let it burn me, but please. Again, you see how she's not thrusting her prayer, that mood of if you so desire, right? Which means that Krishna, ultimately, I know, may thy will be done. Your desire is what that will be done eventually, but this is my humble appeal. Because this is where the exclusivity and the mood of surrender and humility comes. Many times, again, the second characteristic of a prayer is, the moment you carry an expectation, the prayer no more becomes a prayer, it becomes a business transaction or a demand almost, right? So Uttara, she is approaching Krishna with the mood that Krishna, may thy will, if you so please, right? I don't mind burning. I'm not interested in my self-preservation, but if you so desire, don't burn this embryo. Again, is she acting out of motherly affection? Yes, to deny that would be to deny the human side of Uttara. But at the same time, being the chaste wife of a great warrior, being the daughter-in-law of Yudhishthir Maharaj himself, for her, as as this gentle, noble daughter-in-law of that family, it was also her responsibility to protect the future heir of the entire Kuru dynasty. The entire legacy of the dynasty depends on her. So for her, at one level, yes, the motherly affection is there and there is nothing wrong with that. But she also carried within her heart a sense of responsibility, of legacy. And so she was making this humble appeal, right? So this is that beautiful mood of praying where you don't want to thrust upon the Lord. Okay, Lord, right? And especially those of you who grew up in India and perhaps in many other parts of the world also, right? Every prayer is associated with some ritual, right? And we think that by the power of ritual, you can arm twist the Lord and get your things done. Right? See, the ritual is not what that gives success to your prayer. The ritual is meant to invoke in you a sense of seriousness and commitment and inspire a sense of humility. Right? Like when we, for example, in the Vedic culture, we offer a puja. When you offer that puja, the arti, you offer the earth in the form of dhupa. You offer water in the form of the arghya. You offer fire in the form of the deepa, the lamp. Right? So we offer all these 5 elements and don't think that, oh, now I offered my 5 elements, Krishna, transaction done. Right? I made my online payment, the product should be delivered in the next 24 hours, Amazon Prime. That is not what the ritual is meant for. When you're offering these elements of nature, we are supposed to tell ourselves that Krishna, you are the master of earth, water, fire, and ether. Because of my ego, I thought these are mine. Let me purify my ego. Let me become humble through this ritual. And then in that state of humility, let me finally offer my prayer. Right? So that is the mood and understanding of of all these Vedic rituals. So when we offer this prayer, it's not that you're demanding something from Krishna, but our mood is, Krishna, if you so desire, right? And this is perhaps the most difficult and the challenging thing to handle, when Krishna does not fulfill our desire. And please, honestly, ask yourself how many times perhaps in our childhood, before exams, for maybe some entrance exams, or maybe even during some difficult moments in your life, we offered a prayer, right? And uh, we our desire did not get fulfilled, right? Then what will you do? What was your response, right? Perhaps some of us thought maybe those prayers didn't work, right? The other extreme is to think maybe say something wrong with my prayer. Both are atheistic mentalities. To think that Krishna is not capable of hearing my prayer, or to think that I am not capable of praying to Krishna, both are atheistic mentalities. The devotional understanding mentality is, perhaps this is not the right thing for me now, and Krishna knows best, right? Therefore, when your prayers are fulfilled, your heart should be filled with gratitude. And when your prayers are not fulfilled, your heart should be filled with introspection. And both are devotional responses, right? So what is it that Krishna wants me to learn from this situation, right? So this questioning the Lord or even your ability, and this both are signs of ego. One is boosted ego, other is depressed ego, but nevertheless ego. So we want to get out of this mindset and understand the right mood of prayer as exhibited by the great personalities like Uttara and next we are going to see. So as Uttara offer this prayer, something extraordinary is going to happen now. Krishna is standing there in front of everyone, and suddenly that Brahmastra disappears. or the effect of that Brahmastra vanishes. What happened? Now Uttara is happy. Child in the embryo inside the womb is saved. Right? What happened? Nobody perceived. Right? It's like you're standing here. Like imagine, suddenly like it's dinner time for most of you in India. Like suddenly some special food gets delivered to your house, right? And you're wondering who ordered it, where is it happening from, right? And turns out I secretly ordered some food for you and I send it to your house. And you're wondering, hey, here you are standing in front of us, you're giving a class. When did you do all this? Right? So something like that, not everybody could perceive what exactly happened. Because Krishna was just standing there like everybody else. Arjuna was standing there, Krishna was standing there. But what happened? Another great devotee is going to reveal to us now. Right? Because Kunti Devi, who was very silently witnessing all this, she notices something extraordinary. That Krishna entered in, while he was personally standing there, he entered into the womb of Mother Uttara, expands and enters into the womb of Mother Uttara. And apparently, Bhagavad Puran says that, and Mahabharata also says this, that how that Brahmastra actually completely burnt Parikshit Maharaj, the embryo. So Krishna, he destroyed that Brahmastra with his Sudarshan Chakra and completely restored the body of Parikshit Maharaj. Which means literally Parikshit had a rebirth even before being born. The embryo died inside the womb. But Krishna brought it back to life. In fact, in India, these two prayers of Mother Uttara are very popular because sometimes, when during the time of pregnancy, for the protection of the child, it is a culture in India to recite many prayers, right? And these two verses of Mother Uttara are one of those important prayers that would-be mothers would like to recite for the protection of the child in the womb. So here is Kunti Devi witnessing all of this. She could see that, she could understand, because this is how the Lord acts. The Lord never acts by the display of his greatness, because the Lord is driven, especially when it comes to devotional reciprocations, for him it's a display of his sweetness. And only one whose eyes are imbued with the salve of love can witness these pastimes of the Lord. So not everybody in the audience could see what exactly happened, but Mother Kunti, she was able to see all this. And now, what is going to start in this section of the Bhagavad Puran is perhaps one of the most extraordinary prayers that you will ever read. In fact, many devotees like to memorize these prayers right? Because that's also a very important theme. Many times when you are told to pray, we are wondering, we are standing before the Lord and we are wondering, what should I pray? Right? And usually our prayers are so mundane, right? And perhaps the most immediate emergency in your head will pop out, right? And we'll probably say, oh Lord, this financial issue I'm going through, help me resolve this. Or whatever, some important exam is coming as a student, please help me resolve this. And we blurt out something stupid, right? Like sometimes, those of you who've been to the Tirupati Balaji temple in South India, one of the most, popular Hindu temples in the world, and so crowded because of the popularity. Sometimes devotees stand for 3 to 4 hours in the line and they get 3 to 4 seconds darshan. And after standing for 3 to 4 hours, when the Lord is there before you, you don't know what to pray. Right? And that visiting Balaji, people go through so much of preparation. Book the tickets on time, book the travel tickets, the darshan tickets, the food arrangements. They plan so much, but they never plan what to pray before the Lord. Right? The main purpose why you're going there is to pray, and that one part we miss. So when we don't know how to pray, the best thing to do, our acharyas describe, is to emulate the prayers of great devotees like Kunti Maharani. So therefore, many times one of the important aspects of the bhakti tradition is to memorize these prayers. So I know for some of you who don't, for whom Sanskritam may be a new language, it is not that only when you recite the Sanskritam prayers, then they are potent. No, again, a prayer has an external form and it has the inner substance. That substance is the mood of that prayer. So if Sanskritam may be difficult, memorize it in English. If you can't memorize it verbatim, paraphrase it for yourself in your head. Right? That's why when you're reading such sections of the Bhagavad Puran, right, it's good to sometimes, after reading a prayer, maybe a set of prayers, 2 or 3 prayers, good to close the book and rewrite, bring out that mood, because that prayer creates certain mood within you. Invoking that mood, write your own prayer within your heart on a paper. Right? In fact, one of our acharyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he would say that compile poetry, because it's easy to write it in prose. But if you can put something in poetry, in rhyme, then you are meditating on that longer. Try this as an exercise. Pick any one prayer. For example, let's actually read this first prayer itself, right? O Krishna, I offer my obeisances unto you because you are the original personality and are unaffected by the qualities of the material world. You are existing both within and without everything, yet you are invisible to all. Right? So take this, this English translation and try to compile a simple 4-line rhyming prayer capturing the essence of this. And you will see it may take you maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and please don't use ChatGPT, right? Try to own that prayer. And when you write that prayer on your own, you are not just owning that prayer, you are owning the mood. And it is such a powerful meditation. You will feel close to Krishna if you can do that, right? And this prayer that Kunti Maharani here, she's praying, Namaste Purusham Tvadyam. Oh Krishna, you are that original Adi Purusha, Govindam Adi Purusham. You are that original Supreme Personality of Godhead. You are the source of all, you are the cause of all causes. You are the source of everything, right? And you are Ishvara Prakriti Param. You are unaffected by Prakriti. You are like, we are all bound by Prakriti. We are all bound by the 3 gunas. But here is Kunti Maharani saying that Krishna, you are beyond the 3 gunas, right? And this is very interesting. Alakshanam, you are invisible. Sarva Bhutanam. You may be wondering what? If he is invisible, then whom is she looking at? Who is everybody looking at? She is not talking about the visible pastimes of Krishna, but she's talking about those invisible pastimes of Krishna. Because many times people ask, show me God. Prabhupada would many times reply, yes, I can show you God, but are you qualified enough to see God? Many times we demand something without the qualification. So here is Kunti Maharani, who's perfectly qualified because she is revealing something extraordinary. Antar Bahir Avasthitum. You are inside and outside of everything. The Upanishads also beautifully describe Tadejati Tannejati. The Supreme Lord, he is the master of inconceivable contradictions. He goes, he walks, but does not walk. Tadure Tadvyantike. He is very far and yet within you. Tadu Antarasya Baharasya. He is inside and yet outside simultaneously. Right? This is that inconceivable nature of the absolute truth, which this prayer is revealing, saying, Krishna, you are that absolute truth, that supreme personality of Godhead, who is beyond the mundane laws of material energy, and therefore you can transcend this material limitations, because operating under the material laws, I can be inside or outside. But here you are, you can be both inside and outside simultaneously, right? And then she further continues that how there is this whole curtain of Maya, Javanika Achannam. Javanika means like a curtain. There's this whole curtain of Maya which is blinding the vision of the conditioned souls. Krishna is there right now in your room. Apurva, he's there behind that curtain. Not the curtain that I see, but the curtain of Maya. The curtain of that material energy, right? He's there. In the Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna says that it is that the curtain of the three gunas which is blinding our consciousness. Our consciousness does not see reality for what it is. Right? Like when something extraordinary happens, right? Somebody will dismiss it, saying, nothing happened. Nonsense. That is tamas. Right? When something, or when somebody else will say, oh, it purely happened by the hard work of this one person. That is rajasic mentality. Somebody may say, oh, there are so many factors for this person to be successful. There is effort of their parents who trained this person. There's effort of, so many, maybe perhaps the teacher, the government, right? The bigger material nature. That's a very sattvic way of thinking. But when you transcend, so this is how the gunas are influencing us constantly. But when you transcend the limitation of these three gunas, then we will be able to see the Supreme Lord in action at every moment. That is this Maya Javanika, the curtain of Maya, which is blocking our consciousness. That's why Krishna is referred to as Adhokshaja. Adhokshaja means one who is beyond our senses. Akshaja, eyes, right? So, that which is born from perception of your eyes and all other senses, right? He is beyond your perception of the limited senses. Prabhupada gives another very beautiful meaning of the word Adhokshaja, literally, and that's the beauty of Sanskritam. You can derive multiple meanings of the different syllables. Akshaja, ja means jam or ja, as in janma, right? That which is born. Ksha are the first and the last letters of the Sanskritam alphabets. Right? So, Ksha also means the entire list. So, first and last and everything including it in between, which means the entire Sanskritam alphabets. So, that which is born of alphabets are words which you use to describe. But Krishna is indescribable. Therefore, another meaning of the word Adhokshaja means one who cannot be put in mundane words. Adhokshaja. Right? So he says that Krishna, you are beyond the range of the limited sense perception, and you are the eternally irreproachable factor. Right? That is beyond, Adhokshaja, covered by the curtain of deluding energy. And yet, Nalakshase Mura Disha Nato Natyadharo, you are invisible to the foolish observer, exactly as an actor dressed as a player is not recognized. Because Krishna here in the Mahabharata, at least in this part of Mahabharata, he's playing the role of an insignificant charioteer. Nobody is able to see him. Ordinary people, in fact, Duryodhan, throughout the Mahabharata, even when he was told that, why are you fighting? Stop this war. Don't you know who's on the other side? Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And no, he's just after all, he's just a magician, that's all. An expert magician, right? In fact, at one point in the war, when they got Kaurava army got a really bad battering, Duryodhan was one day thinking very pensively in his camp in the night time. Should I abort this war? Maybe the Pandavas were right. Maybe Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How can I ever win in a fight against God? Can you imagine? Such thoughts came in the mind of Duryodhan. But this is the, not every thought can be a judgment of your character. Right? You have to see the overall series of thoughts that you have. You can't just judge someone just by one character. Just like how you cannot judge some celebrity by one tweet that they post. Right? So what all, their entire character, their entire narrative, one has to understand. And that's how one comes to a conclusion. So Duryodhan immediately, he tells, that's what the Maya Javanika immediately got covered over him. The curtain of Maya immediately clouded his consciousness. Immediately he says, no, that's not possible. It is just some magic tricks that they displayed. Tomorrow I'm going to fight with renewed strength and I'm going to defeat the Pandava army. Right? So this is how the foolish observers, they cannot perceive the hand of God at every step. But then who can then perceive? Right? Very, very beautiful prayer coming up next. Perhaps one of the highlight prayers. There's so many powerful prayers. This is one of the highlight ones. He says, the great Paramahamsas, Tatha Paramahamsana, Muninam, Amala Atmanam. The great Paramahamsa means the advanced transcendentalists. Munis means the great philosophers, thinkers. Amalatma means those who are pure in their heart. Right? Such advanced spiritualists, they can understand you, Krishna. Right? And then he says, and such people, and not the most important qualification is Bhakti Yoga Vidarna. Only those who have become advanced by purifying their consciousness through Bhakti Yoga, such people can perceive. And here is Kunti Devi. Look at her humility. She says, Katham Pashyamahi Striyaha. How can a woman like me understand you? And this is also a consistent theme you will see throughout Bhagavatam. Whoever is praying, they will see themselves as unqualified. Here, Kunti Maharani, she looks at herself as an insignificant woman. When Prahlad is praying later on, he says, I am a demon, I have no qualification. When Dhruva is playing later on, says, I am after all a kid, what qualification do I have? Yudhishthir later on prays, he says, I am a king and I am absorbed in politics and all this. I am the most unqualified person to pray to you, Krishna. So it is not that Kunti is demeaning herself, or she's saying that how, it's not that women as a whole, she's putting them down, but rather a devotee sees themselves as disqualified and finds every opportunity to find anything. But then that is something when you are looking at yourself, not when it's not for fault finding on others. But other devotees convert that same apparent disqualification as their greatest qualification. And look what Prabhupada writes in the purport. Right? He writes that, look, why is Kunti, first he justifies what is Kunti's rationale. Why is she putting herself down just because she's a woman? She says because she's comparing herself with those transcendentalists, those thinkers and philosophers who are highly left-brained. Right? And he writes that women in general are unable to speculate like philosophers. But, right? But this is the point. This is how Prabhupada so beautifully is glorifying Kunti, and what she apparently saw as a disqualification is going to convert it as a qualification. But they are blessed by the Lord because they believe at once in the superiority of the Almighty Lord. And thus they offer obeisances without reservation. The Lord is so kind that he does not show special favor only to one who's a great philosopher. He knows the sincerity of purpose. So it is not how expert scholar you are, how expert pujari you are. If it is how expert in sincerity you are. For this reason, if you are not convinced enough, this statement of Prabhupada will convince you how advanced women are. For this reason only, women generally assemble in great number in any sort of religious function. In every country, in every sect of religion, in every Zoom class. If you're not convinced, look at the participants in this class. Right? A maximum number of students, right? They're all women, right? Out of the 17 participants we have, I think more than around 15, right, are women, right? So that should convince you, right, that women are more interested in spiritual topics than men, right? So Prabhupada, see how this is the heart of a devotee. At our level, individually, we should see our qualifications as our disqualifications. But when it comes to others, right, when you're glorifying another Vaishnava or a Vaishnavi, another devotee, we should look at what they seemingly are considering their disqualifications as their greatest qualifications. Right? That is the heart. That's a beautiful mood of devotion. Right? So therefore, in these prayers, somehow I wanted to cover more, but I think we'll have a part 2 of this class. Right? In these prayers, we are still at the glory part. Kunti Maharani is glorifying Krishna. Right? And the glory part will continue further. There are many more beautiful, right? We didn't even enter the mood of gratitude, right? We'll come to that in our next class. So let's open the forum for any quick questions or comments if anybody may have.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Medina here.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Medina ji, please.
Thank you so much for the wonderful session as always. So much new insights. One point caught my attention when you were talking about the three gunas and the transcendence of three gunas. And seldom I find myself in the tamasic or rajasic modes. And, there are few moments of deep prayer when that sattva guna comes into place and you feel it, you know it, right? When you cannot fool yourself, when you're consciously think, like how you describe the situation, right? Like that you think, oh, like everything is connected and whatever is happening around is because of the Lord. And in my head, that this, like what I think of the sattva guna is that it's the highest form that the human being can experience. But then what you are saying, and what I also read one of the statements from Radhanath Swami Maharaj, is that he says the purpose of life is to transcend the three gunas. So how can we transcend the sattva guna when sattva guna for a human being is the highest guna? Is that, like, what happened? Like,
Okay.
what should we do?
Right. See, sattva guna is the highest in a sense. It is the most favorable operating guna from a sadhaka's perspective, but eventually the whole point is to transcend the gunas, because bhakti in its purest sense is gunatita, it is beyond the gunas. So we are aspiring to come to that state, right? So Prabhupada will many times say this is like, before you fly in the air, you go to the airport. So airport is a launching station for you to transcend into air. So sattva guna is like that, right? However, having said that, we don't want to get stuck to sattva guna, because the sattva guna, too much of sattva guna can also create a sense of apathy, where we become stuck to our own sense of well-being. So we want to transcend that also. So to transcend that is where entering into that space of devotional service, because the apathy of sattva guna can only be transcended by some form of selfless service under the direction of a devotee. Right? So if I were to break it down, sattva guna will give you the discipline to transcend your rajas and tamas. That discipline can also make you so stuck in a shell that you get stuck to your disciplined routines.
Mm.
And that's where sometimes we miss the point of bhakti. So to transcend that, we need to channelize our sense of discipline in some tangible action. And that's the idea of seva. And
that's
you can't just randomly decide your own seva again, because our speculation will not work. So that's where seva, as given and directed by a more mature devotee, will help you to channelize that discipline. And then suddenly you will notice that your discipline no more becomes a block, but it becomes your ally in your spiritual growth.
So is it right to think that once, let's say, most of our existence, we are in the Sattva-guna mode, is it right to think that we will attract a guru who is a devotee who will later direct us? Like, it's not like I'm saying that we shouldn't work hard looking for that person, but universe has a beautiful way of arranging things, when you're ready for them. Like you said, right? You cannot see God if you're not ready for it. Right. So yeah, like if the student is not ready, the master will not appear. So our speaking about myself, so my aim should be to be in that sattva mode as much as I can. Is my understanding correct?
Yes, and if you think about it, Bhagavatam, Gita are giving us certain guidelines. So learning to make that as your guiding force is also a part of channelizing your sattvaguna. Right? So actually most people struggle with coming to sattvaguna. so having addressed that problem, right? So then transcending that sattvaguna will come in, right? So that is why when we say bhakti comes only by Bhagavat Kripa and Bhagavat Kripa, by the mercy of the Lord or an advanced devotee. What does it mean? It means that as long as you're operating at your own ability and your own notions of what is right and wrong, with your own faculties of intelligence, mind, body, you can at best grow only till the limit of your sattvaguna. That jump from sattva to beyond will come when there is the empowerment coming by the grace of the Lord or his pure devotee. So the instructions of the Lord or the guidance of the devotee. Instructions of the Lord, so the guidance of the devotee, you said, yes, we have to spend time and finding the right guide. But the instructions of the Lord are there in the Gita and the Bhagavad Puran, right? So learning to mold our life according, aligning our life purpose in line with the purpose given by Vyasa in Bhagavatam, by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, will help us in that journey.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Right, we'll take one last question. In the chat box, there's a question that says, how can we experience Krishna always in our lives during difficult times when he's not personally present before us, as he was with Queen Kunti? So it's interesting. Kunti Maharani is not glorifying Krishna, the visible Krishna. She is glorifying the invisible Krishna. This is the point. Because she is, though she has a personal connection with Krishna, all that we'll discuss in our next week's class, she was able to see the invisible hand of God, exactly as how Krishna is operating in our life. So it is not about, so Kunti's qualification was not that she had the personal presence of Krishna, she was able to perceive the invisible presence of Krishna. Right? And that is the mood, right? So how does it come? Perhaps without revealing too much about what we are going to discuss later, but somewhere why it becomes difficult for us to perceive Krishna in our life during difficult times is because we have a gross misunderstanding about the concept of happiness. right? Many times, see, it is the jiva's right to be happy, first of all. Anandamayo bhyasat, the Taittiriya Upanishad talks. So it is a jiva's right to be happy. But we don't know the right happiness. We think that I have a particular notion of how things have to go on. And when things happen according to my notion, then that is happiness. But the more I connect to the absolute truth, that is how I am unlocking my potential for happiness. So this is a difference between the worldly notion of happiness and the spiritual concept of happiness. So when we go through difficult times, we expect that life should always be good. That itself is a mistake we make. Rather, when life is good, we should express our gratitude to Krishna. When life is difficult, we express our prayer to Krishna. So it is that connection to Krishna that brings happiness. When life is good and you forget Krishna, you will lose that happiness. And when life becomes difficult, burdened by the intensity of the pain, when you forget Krishna, again you will miss out an opportunity. That's why Kunti Maharani, in one of the later on prayers, she's going to pray, please recreate all those difficulties again, because during difficult times, I feel more connected to you in prayer. So what is good? A happy life with no prayer or a difficult life with prayer? What is good? Be careful, Krishna is listening to your answer. Perhaps most of us will say a happy life with prayer.
Prabhuji, so can we say that, during challenging times, difficult times, one way to connect to Krishna is by surrendering, which is of course very difficult, but you're stressed, you're challenged, and you surrender and you said, okay, Krishna, I can't do it anymore. Please let your will, be thy will. So is that the right way to connect to Krishna that time? Only if the thought of surrenderance comes, which is again very challenging.
See, again, don't make it an intellectual exercise.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right? So it is just like, this one time, a vet, he was brought up, a client brought his horse because his horse apparently swallowed a watermelon. So the horse was sick. The entire full watermelon was swallowed and it was stuck in its neck. So it was brought to a vet. So the vet saw the situation, and what he did, he took a hammer and gently hit the neck. The watermelon broke, the horse swallowed, back to normal. So the vet had an assistant. He said, oh, that's all it takes to cure horses. So he quits the vet, starts his own clinic. And naturally, when there's a clinic, people come, and one sick horse was brought. This time the horse had some fever or some other issue. He said, I know how to treat horses. He takes a hammer, whacks it on its neck. The horse dies. I said, Hare, it worked for the vet. Why is it not working for me? So many times we make bhakti an intellectual exercise like this. So there's a difference between imitation and inspiration. So we are trying to get inspired by the mood of surrender. Sometimes surrender requires you to let go. Sometimes surrender requires you to double up your efforts and persist. So you cannot create an intellectual blueprint for the path of surrender. Then we are thinking not like a bhakta, we are thinking like a jnani, and we are missing out on Krishna's grace. Right? So that is where pray, the greatest miracle Krishna performs in our life is give us sadbuddhi, the right intelligence. Right? So that right intelligence, this is divine intelligence, not our calculated, textbook algorithmic intelligence. That sadbuddhi, what it does, it gives us the right direction towards a path of surrender. So while this when you, within your heart, when you create that mood of surrender, Krishna from that heart, he gives that sadbuddhi, right? So yeah, that's why I will say, don't make it black and white. It's a very personal, individual, case to case situation, right? Yeah. All right. So we'll end our discussion here, and we'll continue with these prayers in our next class. Thank you all so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.